Latest on the nuclear situation now. We're joined on the line by Lehr. He is science director of the Chicago-based think tank, the Heartland Institute. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Lehr.
You're welcome, Jacqueline. I'm glad to be of help.
Are you surprised that given, all the high-tech innovation, the structural reinforcements that we know have gone into building the nuclear reactors in Japan, which is, of course, one of the most volatile earthquake zones, that we have now not one, not two, but three nuclear reactors where the cooling systems have failed?
No, Jacqueline, I'm not surprised at all, but I'm also not worried about a major disaster to the people of Japan outside of a small amount of radiation sickness. We, as you know, of course, Japan is the most seismically active country that operates hugely on nuclear power. They have 56 power plants, and they build them for the worst possible disaster. This is certainly one of them. They go through these kind of emergency procedures on a regular basis to deal with a meltdown, and they're doing this now. They're prepared for it. Certainly they don't want it to happen, but they are able to deal with it. We rank nuclear power disasters on a scale of 7. Chernobyl was a 7, the worst disaster. The 3 Mile Island disaster in the United States in 1979 was a level 5, where there were no fatalities from the meltdown at that plant. This is a level 4, and they are dealing with it, and it'll be years perhaps before they get those power plants going, but they will get the meltdown under control within a reasonable amount of time. And remember, even failing that, they do have a containment building around the core of the power plant, and the chance of any significant radiation getting out to the public is very small. The sickness they've incurred already is basically due to the venting of some pressure where some gases actually escape.
Right. But let me ask you. I mean, we have 190 people also. Last word, reportedly testing positive for radiation. So right. I hear what you're saying, that even in the worst case scenario, even if there was an all-out meltdown, that situation wouldn't be so bad because of all these containment domes. And last word, we heard the core was not damaged. But the truth is there is some radiation. We know radiation levels do cause cancer. If you're among those 190, this is a huge, devastating thing in your life.
Well, you're absolutely right. I mean, if you were one of them, there is that possibility of illness. But I mean, the main thing is to alleviate the overall stress that we basically have the equivalent of a nuclear bomb in Japan. And of course, nobody knows about nuclear bombs better than Japan. They're the only country that ever had one dropped on them. So I think it's important to alleviate the fear of a mega disaster. I mean, they have bigger problems in Japan. As you know, the death toll is rising from all the damage from the earthquake, and I feel that the nuclear potential problems are considerably less than the other problems they face throughout the country from the earthquake itself. There will be a small amount of illness, as you point out.
I understand what you're saying, but it's not over, and this is where the fear many people say lies. They say the fact that they're even using seawater to cool down these reactors is a Hail Mary, and we know that...
No, it's not a Hail Mary. I mean, they have many, many backup plants, and seawater is certainly one of them. They have been through these drills over and over again, and they will get control of it. I mean, I cannot, I feel very badly for anyone who has been subjected to the radiation, but we are not seeing disaster to Japan, nor are we seeing that nuclear power are time bombs around the country. It's actually the safest form of power we've ever had. You know, Jacqueline, there are 444 commercially operating nuclear plants in the world, and there has never been a single fatality in any of them. We lose 200 people a year in explosions in conventional power plants of coal and natural gas. So people should not fear that nuclear power is not our future, because it is, regardless of this horrible disaster.
Right. So let me just ask you about this point. One of the reactors where the cooling systems and even the backups for that have failed is reactor number 3. This is a reactor that has plutonium as part of a mixture called MOX fuel. We talked to one expert, a health and environmental expert, who says that is especially deadly if there's exposure. So we already believe there's a partial meltdown of that plant. If this goes any further, plutonium exposure is not a good thing.
It certainly isn't, Jacqueline, but it's not going to go further to the point that it's going to be openly exposed to the public. I mean,
but how do you know that, Mr. Lehr?
The plant's going to be out of operation.
But how do you know that?
Because they are built for this purpose, Jacqueline. They assume when they build this plant the worst possible disaster.
But the backup systems
plans.
failed.
They go through these procedures over and over again, and sadly, the worst case disaster has occurred. But there's nothing that they are not prepared for, and seawater is clearly one of the backup plans. It is not a Hail Mary.
Okay, so then the seawater is the best backup. What's the best backup right now that will not fail?
We're actually sending them coolant. They've got to change the way they immerse their rods. They've got to increase the level of coolant. They've got all kinds of controls and apparatus that they're into play to reduce the heat within the core. They're doing that as we speak. I have absolutely no doubt that they're going to get control of it, and that a huge population is not going to be exposed to radiation that is going to be life-threatening. They've already had enough of it. This is to be expected almost, but I'm very confident that the people of Japan do not have to see the nuclear meltdown that is going on as being an imminent disaster, increasingly to the health of the public beyond what they're already experiencing from the earthquake.
I just want to ask you then, I mean, if you're saying, you know, the backup systems, they have many to use and utilize, but what we're seeing here is a deteriorating situation, because initially we had one reactor where there was a blast, then we had a second reactor which is also believed to have suffered a partial meltdown. Now we have a third reactor where the cooling system again has failed. So it's building in numbers. It's not decreasing. How come if everything's working in terms of backup systems?
Well, this is, again, what they expect. They move from Plan A to Plan B to Plan C. And remember, they have a containment building around the whole thing to stop the worst-case situation of it getting out. I'm not trying to minimize the terrible situation at these power plants. What I'm trying to minimize is concern that we're going to have, you know, the equivalent of atomic bomb in terms of radiation getting out within the public in Japan. That simply is not going to happen.
Well, many people are saying, you know, if it's a total of 6 reactors that are on emergency, let's hope not all 6 get to the point where the cooling systems fail. I mean, no one would like to see that, but we continue to watch it. Jay Lehr is with the Heartland Institute. Thank you.
You're welcome, Jacqueline.